So through the door bolts have lazy tails that move. Surface mounted locks have fixed tails. Fixed tails, the way these locks are made, they're made as a dual opening system. This tail goes through the lock. It operates something in this inside of this lock, okay? And the tail extends into the hollow part of this knob so that this knob can go around it and lock and unlock with a totally different operator than the key.
Where's that little button for him?
I'm getting to that.
Yeah.
I'm getting to that.
Can I just, for a moment?
Sure.
Okay, through the door bolt means that the bolt literally is moving through the door. A surface mount bolt, the bolt is moving on the surface of the door. The bolt is not going through the door itself, okay?
Okay, on a Jimmy-proof lock, the reason for this tab is a safety factor. When this lock is put into this back end, okay, if someone somehow rips this out of your door, the tail is going to fly out. Did you notice that come out further now? Okay. Now that hole, which is exposed from the outside because you ripped this out, you would try and put a screwdriver in there, and you can't get it in there to open the lock. But if you release that and left it in like that, someone could easily take a screwdriver and just do that. It's a safety factor. Now you can't get it in. Okay? And how to take this off? Well,
I'm going to take this.
basically,
So this is a rim, and this is a deadbolt, and you can see the difference between lazy versus fixed.
there are 4 screws here. There are 3 screws here, 3 screws here. Doesn't matter, sometimes there's 4. Those screws have to come off. You would take these screws off, and sometimes they put one-way screws in. If they put in one-way screws, there are tools that take out one-way screws, and if you don't use that, there is another way of doing it, but it makes it much more difficult. You need a cold chisel, a pliers, and a hammer. And what you need to do is hit that screw on the high side with the hammer and the chisel to make it turn enough to grab it with the pliers and then twist it out. But once you take this off, you will have this exposed, which has 2 screws in it, or this exposed, which has 2 screws in it, okay? And those 2 screws hold the cylinder on the other side of this lock. Well, there was one other thing I wanted to mention, and that's real quick, about the mortise locks.
When I do that, it doesn't line up with the other piece anymore, and it won't lock, it won't turn. That's why you hire professionals. Yeah.
There's a point in that, but
And here's your 2 screws on the plate I just showed you. Okay, these 2 screws come out, and then this comes out the front of the door.
if the strike is not lining up with the lock, it may involve carpentry, which would either mean mortising something in deeper or shimming something out.
Okay, if you're using a mortise lock, okay, if you have a mortise lock in your front doors or something, all right, they come in a couple different sizes, 2.5, 2 3/4.
Blank line 1, blank line 1.
When? It's sort of a matter of, yes it is, but in all the older buildings in this area, the front doors usually have mortise locks.
Oh, sure they do.
Oh, they do, they
Yeah.
do. It depends, because you see them in hospitals and you see them in Large apartment buildings, they would rather put a
They
mortise
tend to
lock
be in institutional or large-scale settings because they're expensive and they're more labor to put in.
Yes. Yes, they are stronger in most cases. Most doors will take 1.1 or 1.25 cylinder, a mortise cylinder. These things thread into these locks. Okay? In order to get these screws out, these locks take half spindles or full spindles. And this is basically a full spindle, okay? And it has 2 set screws, okay? And you need to take those 2 set screws off, twist that knob off, slide this out, take the screws out of the plates from the back or the back and the front, okay? And then the last thing that comes out is the cylinder. And the only way you're going to get the cylinder out, there's 3 ways. One is exposed, one is non-exposed, all right? This one has exposed screws. The older ones can have one center screw that'll hold both of these. Sometimes there's another piece in the opposite side. That's why there's another hole in both sides, all right? The newer ones will have 2 screws. If you loosen that screw, this will spin right out. If you don't loosen that screw, you're never going to get this out. You're going to fight with it. You're going to fight with it with the pliers and screw up the cylinder. And if you find yourself with one of these where you don't see the screws, it's because it has a cover plate. I'm going to take the screw out. I'm going to take them both out, actually, but I'm going to hold this up one more time. If you look, there's the screw. There's the screw, and right underneath this cover plate are the 2 holes to access it. Right there. And that's basically what we were going to tell you today. The cylinder is screwed in. You don't use one with a tail like this in that kind of lock. Okay?
I will say, if you are replacing your mortise cylinder, there's 2 bits of information that we need. How long it is. You measure it from the outside here, from the bottom of this cam, to just underneath the lip. We need to know how long that is. We also need to know what this looks like. This is a common, what we call a standard Yale cam. Probably, 75 to 80% of the locks have this. But there are other ones out there, and so it's good for us to know what that is. Someone had a question earlier which I wanted to answer quickly. Say you have to key your entire house and there's nobody to stay home. Then you do it in stages. Maybe what you do is you take all the deadbolts off, bring all the deadbolts in. We figure out what's going on with the deadbolts, we get them rekeyed. You go back, you reinstall your deadbolts, then you bring one of those new keys, because we still have to have that key that we're going to rekey it to. Then you bring all the knobs in. Your deadbolts are keeping the house secure, and then you get the knobs done. I mean, we can do it in all different kinds of stages. It means paying attention. It means making sure you have keys to open everything up. All the locks you bring in to rekey, we really like to have those keys so we can get inside. Sometimes we can break into them. It is additional fees to break into things. Sometimes we can't. And also they wanted to know how quickly we could get the work done. It all depends on what's happening up there. There are some days that we have enough work for 2 days up there. So it's a good idea, if you have a project going on, talk to us so we can have an idea about how long it will take, when's a good idea to bring it in. If you come at 7:30 in the morning, most likely you'll have it done by the end of the day if it's an average set of locks. But still talk to us in advance, that way we can make sure things work out well.
I just seen there is a left lock and is there a right and left?
Yes.
Remember the handing that we did at the beginning? So right hand means it pushes in, right hand reverse means it pulls out. Left hand pushing in, left hand reverse pulling out. And so when you tell us that information, we may need to change the direction of the latch. We have to open that case up, change the latch, put the case back together.
Some of them can be changed and some of them can't.
Pardon?
The same lock will work for both the left.
It depends on the manufacturer. Most of them are what we call field reversible. Some of them are not, especially the older ones. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Regarding cost, what's the approximate difference between Class 1 and Class 2? I'm sorry, Class 2 and Class 3.
Class 2 and Class 3.
Grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3.
Grade 3. It depends on the manufacturer. We have a grade 3 lock for $20. We have a grade 2 lock for $40. We have a grade 1 lock for, a grade 1 lock for $90. We also have a grade 3 lock for $9.99, and we have a grade 2 lock.
We have a grade 3 for 22
$9.99
and $9.99.
and $9.99.
Yeah.
We also have a grade 2 lock. It's $120, which is a stay.
Okay. We also have a grade 2 lock.
And then we also
for
have a grade
2
1
1/4
lock
inch
that's
door
cheaper than the
that's
grade
like
2
$120.
lock. That doesn't have the name Schlag on it. It's called Cal Royal, and that one's $89, and that's a grade 1
Yeah.
lock. And we don't have one out here, but we can get one and show you. It's if you think this one's heavier, it's even heavier than this. And I'll get one for you real quick.
It's
You had a question.
it's really good to talk to us about your environment, what your needs are. We can help you sort of weigh and measure costs and benefits because, really the price points are all different, the qualities are all different. And so what's your end use, and we'll show you what your choices are, and then you can decide.
Does
What's your
the
question?
spindle have to be tight, the two pieces?
No, you don't. Well, there are solid spindles and there are split spindles. If you have a split spindle, and that's another thing we wanted to show you, because this one is an odd one, all right? If you have a split spindle, it needs to be able to move in an entry door. If it's a passage door, you're going to put a solid spindle because both of them will move at the same time. But there are two parts in that lock, and one will let you move it, and the other one won't unless it's disengaged. And if you put a solid one in there, you're never going to move that other knob.
And if you tighten it all the way, you've done the same thing as put a solid one in. We do have many people who come in who say, I can't get out. And what's happened is remember the two parts Ed talked about? The outside is locked because of a mechanism inside the lock. The inside is free, but because they tightened it up so much it's solid, so they can't get out because the outside is locked. So what they need to do is with that spindle is tighten it up all the way and then just do one revolution loose. That way it gives you plenty of free play to turn your knob.
Okay, and remember I said that this has like 2 screws. Some of them have 1 screw. Most of the time you're going to find knobs like this. It's very rare you're going to find a knob like this, but they are out there. And this is very unusual because this one has a pin locking it into the spindle. You don't move it, okay? This one unscrews from here, slides off out of your way. This slides out of your way. And then this unscrews to get it off the door. You will probably not find these. They are rare. But this is one of my points that I'm saying that every manufacturer is different, and the majority of the manufacturers are the stuff that we just showed you.
Right. And that's why we give you our phone number and email address so that you can call with questions. We'll help you. We'll talk to you about how to install your new deadbolt. People a lot of times have trouble installing their new deadbolt.
Excuse me.
We'll answer those questions. Identifying a lock. Take photos on all 3 sides so we can see what it is and try to identify it. There's a lot of us old ones up here who've seen a bit of stuff, and so we can look at things and sometimes figure out what it is and how to get it apart and how to get it out. We'll coach you on that.